It's the only podcast that brought 438 miles between each other. You're listening to the fifth quarter podcast. This is season 2, episode 2, overall episode number 22. Glad to have you with us. I'm George Koff in College Station with my co-host Desmond McLaughlin in Lubbock. Desmond, how are you doing this fine Thursday afternoon?
Well, George got a little stomach bug, but 2K20 comes out, so I'm very excited. We also have a work party, so it's been pretty good, George.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. And you know what? Else was good? The last weekend of college football. It's good to be back. It's good to have some football to watch and to discuss. But I think unless you have anything else to say, I'm ready to get right into it.
Let's get this, George.
All right, let's get it. So, of course, last week we had the Thursday night kickoff for Texas A&M. They took on Texas State, and, well, the result really wasn't a surprise. Aggies came out with the 41-7 victory. They were 46 seconds away from a shutout. Not salty about that, but, impressive performance. The defense had 4 interceptions. First time that's happened since 2007. Needless to say, I was very impressed, very happy to see the defense step up. Kellen Mond was impressive at quarterback. He had some really, really good throws. I mean, I don't know if you saw that one on social media, Desmond, the one that was like a 40-yard pass on the sideline to the goal, to the pylon. It was absolutely brilliant. The only thing I did not like, we had 2 turnovers inside the red zone, a pick and a fumble, and then we had, now granted the interception, I'll give the Texas State defense some credit. The guy made like a one-handed catch on the interception. So, you can't be upset when you're looking at an interception like that. And then it took us 3 tries to score from the 1-yard line. That was in the first or second quarter. Overall, I'm really happy with the opening performance for the season. I think it was a good start into the season, and looking forward to Clemson for sure, which we'll talk about in just a moment. Desmond, did you have any thoughts about the A&M game?
Well, George, I told you that it was gonna be a blowout. There's no discussion there. So not really about the game. I believe you'll play Clemson, right?
That's correct.
That would probably be one of the toughest games you have all season. So I'd like to see how they handle a team with that stature. I just want to see how they handle Trevor Lawrence. I think it's gonna be a good game. But you know who I probably would pick, George. I'm sorry, but.
No, I agree with you. We're going to talk about that in just a second here. Trevor Lawrence, though, was not at his best against Georgia Tech. Now, granted, it's Georgia Tech. You don't really need to be at your best to beat them. But He only had 196 passing yards or something like that, 2 interceptions. He had a few touchdowns. But Travis Etienne, their running back, which at one point was a Texas A&M commit, okay, it still burns. It still hurts, okay? It still hurts that he was an A&M commit, and then he decommitted, went to Clemson, and now he's probably one of the greatest running backs in Clemson history. So, won 2 national championships. I can't blame him. He had 200 yards rushing on 12 carries. So that's almost 10 yards a carry. More than that, actually. I don't know. I can't do math. And then he had 3 touchdowns as well. I think that the Aggie defensive line could stop that potential and potent run game for the Clemson Tigers, but the Aggies are 18-point underdogs, and I'm not about to try to take an underdog that big. So I've got to go with the Clemson Tigers. I mean, it's going to be a good game, and A&M's confidence is very high and very very motivated, but I think it's going to be still another close game. I've got the Tigers 38-35. Desmond, what about you? You were leaning towards the Tigers, but what do you have prediction-wise?
Yes, I said from my prediction, I said 38-24, so that was very close. But I did have Clemson winning the game. But I'm really curious to see I'm really curious because last year, A&M arguably should have won that game. So I'm ready to see how they can adapt this year and what they have in store.
I have a question for you, Desmond. How much of home field advantage is it going to play in this year? We saw it last year with the 12th man in College Station. Obviously, there were some penalties that the Tigers had with false starts and a few delay games just because they weren't used to that noise. How is that? How much is that going to affect the Aggies this year going to Clemson and going to Death Valley East?
Well, home field advantage is always it's not a huge factor, but it does benefit, of course, the home team. You're dealing with the fans, cheering you on, getting you hyped up alongside the sidelines, getting booed, getting laughed at from the sidelines. If you're the away team, so there's definitely is a factor, but I don't think it unless like of course you go to a place like Kyle Field where it's just crazy, the fans are just die
Right.
hard.
Right.
Then like that's a whole different experience, but still, the home field advantage will definitely help out.
And they are predicting that it's going to be 90 degrees at kickoff. Again, the kickoff is at 2:30 p.m. Central Time on ABC. So the heat and humidity might play a factor into it. But again, you're playing a team from Texas. It's not like we're not used to the humidity or heat. So in September, okay, let's just admit that we're not. It's not foreign to us. I think that's not going to be the big deal. I think it's going to be about how you contain Trevor Lawrence, Trevor Etienne, or I'm sorry, Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, and the rest of the explosive Clemson offense. That game's going to be an interesting one, but let's focus our attention to Lubbock. Lubbock had the Red Raiders started the Matt Wells era off on a good note with a 45-10 victory over the Montana State Bobcats. And Desmond, I just want to mention that my prediction was very close. I said 48-10 last week, and it was 45. And so you just check me on a field goal there, but Bowman looked good. I saw some of the highlights. He looked good. I cannot believe he had 53 passing attempts. 53 passing attempts. He went 40. His stats. This was his stat line: 40 for 53, 436 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, a rushing touchdown, 8 yards rushing to go along with the rushing touchdown, and he only got sacked once. No turnovers. Desmond, do you think the Red Raiders are ahead of schedule?
Well, George, I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves because we did play Montana State, but I like to hear those stats, especially the 1 sack. Definitely means that we upgraded our linemen. Also wanted to mention that if I pronounce his name wrong, I apologize. But our man Shine, not even our main running back, ran for 125 yards.
Wow.
And I think that's big because obviously we're in Big 12. Obviously, I feel like Texas Tech, we're definitely known as a passing team.
It also shows the depth too that you have at running back.
Exactly. Okay, we totaled 4 rushing touchdowns. So most of our touchdowns were scored on rushing, which I like to see because it means that we can be more versatile in our offense.
I agree, and I think it's worth mentioning that we did say that this team, this Texas Tech team, was probably going to get a pretty good introduction, a good way to ease into the season. Montana State, UTEP this week, at Arizona next week, you get your bye week, and then you get Oklahoma. I don't think we're going to see any slowdown from this offense. I've got UTEP trying to go into to Lubbock. They actually have a win, by the way. They're 1-0, but I don't see them getting the upset. So Texas Tech wins. Texas Tech wins 41-13.
Yeah, I went a little bigger. I think they're gonna try to get more points this week. Second week they're gonna try to carry the momentum. I have them winning 53-17.
Whoa. Okay, I can see that. They are 34-point favorites. The Red Raiders are. So I believe, if I can do my math right, I got them winning by 28. You have them winning by 36. So you would have them taking the covering the spread, which is pretty big. All right. Enough about Texas college football. Let's talk about the Big 12 or the top 25. One thing I did notice, or across not just top 25, but across the entire week, we had a bunch of big leads, whether it be at halftime, whether it be the final score. Ohio State, they scored 4 touchdowns in 6 minutes, Desmond. 6 minutes. By the 8th by the 8-minute mark of the first quarter, they were up 28-0 on Florida Atlantic and Lane Kiffin's
That's
offense.
always the first week of college football.
Now, that concerns me. They get Cincinnati next. And Cincinnati held UCLA to like 175 rushing yards or something. It was like nothing. Like it was like UCLA is mainly rushing offense, and they held them to nothing or close to that. Um, I am concerned. I think Ohio State may have been looking like they may have been because in the second half, that offense just petered out. They just really, I think they ended up getting 49 total points, so 21 in the second half, or no, I think it was like 14 in the second half because it was 35 in the first half, something like that. And so I'm curious to see what they're going to do against Cincinnati. I wouldn't be surprised to see a low-scoring game or a very close score. But again, the big leads and big wins were what drove college football this past week. UCF, I don't know if you saw that, they won 62-0, Desmond. 62-0. Anytime you beat a team that much, it doesn't matter who you're playing. It just means you have an explosive offense.
Yeah.
And also Wisconsin beat South Florida 49-0. They were also up 28-0 in the first half. But let's not avoid the guys that had trouble. Iowa State needed 3 overtimes to beat Northern Iowa, which is a FCS team. So that's kind of embarrassing, especially with the fact that they almost got upset. I mean, they needed a fumble to go their way in the third overtime to get the win. And then let's just talk about Purdue in Missouri. Like, what happened? What happened, Boilermaker and Tiger fans? Like, come on. You go to Nevada and Wyoming and you lose. Who even in their right mind is scheduling those games, going to the group of 5 teams, not even having the group of 5 teams going to your stadium, having you travel there? And then, again, also the SEC. Tennessee, what are you doing? What are you doing, Tennessee? What are you doing with your life? You're losing to Georgia State, a team that I actually had to go and Google what their population is, which was like 5,000 people, less than that even. I'm lost for words. I don't know what Tennessee might as well just cancel their football season this week. I know it's week 1 and we're maybe overreacting, but like they're going to lose to BYU this week. They're going to probably be 0-7 by the time they get to SEC or to the thick of SEC play. Like, it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good, Desmond. What's your take on those games? Anything you saw?
Well, George, I think it's funny seeing you get upset because it is funny. As I said, week 1, there's always a bunch of high power school teams just playing these little league teams just so they can get like a win in, get the crowd pumped up, get back in the college football season. Just see how their offense is. So it is kind of funny to see some of these teams, especially like Iowa State, because I talk good about Iowa State. I think they're one of the sleeper teams, especially in the Big 12.
I do too. I agree.
Need to go 3 overtimes against Northern Iowa. That is pretty funny. But no, I'm excited.
And also Kansas. Let's talk about Kansas too. Kansas needed a touchdown in the last 3 minutes to get a win. Now, granted, it's Kansas, and they're kind of up and down, but what were you gonna say? I think I cut you off. You said, and I agree something.
No, I just said I'm ready for these because there are about 2, maybe 3 games that I'm really excited for coming up next week. Where they should be good games.
Oh yes, and I had to laugh though. I have to give Georgia State's coach some credit. I don't know if you saw the video of them at the end of the game. Their coach in the locker room. He said, "You know what they say? The SEC just means more. Well, that win just meant more to us."
That's funny.
So he, I don't know. He was making fun of that, that slogan, and I think Georgia State ended up getting like $600,000 or something. So they got that money and they got the win. Like, that's a lose-lose situation for Tennessee. Like, just ugh. Anyway, looking forward to these big top 25 matchups. Like you mentioned, there's some really good games. We've got, of course, the showdown in Austin. We have a former Big 12 showdown, a big Pac-12, early Pac-12 game, of course, the A&M Clemson game. But let's take a break from college football for just a second, and let's step back into the summer and spring, rather, No, into the summer, not spring, summer. And let's talk about NBA free agency. We had a lot of players move sides and move teams. Desmond, I'll hand it over to you to carry this part of the conversation. But all I'm saying is Russell Westbrook and James Harden on the Rockets. I don't know if I'm excited about that. I'm not
Uh,
sure.
well, I'm excited about it. It's good to see two of the three from Oklahoma City come back together. Um, we'll see how well they do sharing the ball. Both triple double scoring machines. This either could be a groundbreaking move for the Rockets, or it could destroy the whole team chemistry. It'll be interesting. Um,
What about the
uh,
rest of the moves in the NBA?
well, I think it was funny because I saw this one meme and it showed a picture of Kawhi Leonard's face on Thanos, and it was like,
Oh, oh.
it was like, it was like, it was like something like the world must be balanced, and like it said, like would Kawhi Leonard beat the Warriors? Granted, the Warriors were injured. It kind of did balance out the whole NBA, because I
Everyone
mean,
started moving.
Clay's injured. They did get D'Lo, which is good. And then Kevin Durant injured, went to join Kyrie in Brooklyn. And then Kawhi surprisingly went to LA, but didn't choose the Lakers and chose the Clippers instead with Paul George. And then Kemba replaces Kyrie in Boston.
So that was my question is what's your thoughts about the Eastern Conference? Do you think we're going to see some more contenders now in the Eastern Conference now that everything's kind of been shifted out and it's not just this
Mm,
high-powered West and low-powered East?
no, I don't think that there's any competition still. Um, but it'll just be interesting because I want to see how Kemba does in Boston.
Okay. Yeah, do you think he made a good decision by going to Boston? Like just before even playing on the court, do you think he made a good decision in going to Boston?
I
Or should
mean,
he have stayed in Charlotte?
he's been in Charlotte for a while, and he like has a lot of the records, but they weren't really producing anything, and he didn't have a lot to back him up. So I do think it was a good move. Boston's a very young team, and they're the up and coming. I was sad to see Kyrie go. I understand that there's a leadership problem and maybe motivation there, and I really wanted to see him go somewhere else, but it happens. And I think that was a good move picking up Kimba because he is a team player. I think he won like best teammate award a couple years ago or something like that.
Okay.
And he is a good leader. I mean, he did lead Charlotte the whole time, even if they didn't win anything. He still was a leader. So it'll be interesting, especially if he can kind of teach and motivate these younger players that they have on their team.
Okay, Desmond, I want to ask you a question. We've seen the move kind of from the big three to these like dangerous duos kind of idea
Hmm.
now. Of the four big duos that kind of have now been put together for this upcoming season, that being Russ and Harden,
Hmm.
Kawhi and Paul George,
Hmm.
KD and Kyrie, and
Hmm.
LeBron and Anthony Davis.
Mm.
Which which duo is the most successful?
If I've been asked this, and that's a hard question. Now, most people would say LeBron and Anthony Davis, but I don't agree with that because I think that's just dealing with what the press is telling you in popularity. If at the full strength, I don't think anyone could beat Kyrie and KD
At full strength.
at full strength. No.
Okay. And why?
Well, I mean, you saw what Kyrie and LeBron could do, and that was
But that was Kyrie and LeBron.
yeah. But now you're throwing in Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's a little younger. Kevin Durant's a way better shooter. In my opinion, Kevin Durant's he's not better than LeBron, but he's up there. And I think they would have a really nice playing style together. And just compared to all these other duos I see, I really like them. I I wish they both were on the Rockets. Oh, that'd be deadly.
Do you think okay, so you've answered which one will probably do the best. Which one do you think will have the best team chemistry? of those four duos?
Of those four duos, team chemistry. That's a hard. I would see. That's a hard one. It'd either be Davis and LeBron or Kawhi and Paul George.
And why Kawhi and Paul George? Obviously, you've talked
They're
about why
both.
LeBron
They're
and AD,
both.
but
They're both kind of the same play style. Paul George maybe a little bit more shooter, but they both great defensive players. Paul George was up there in the steals. Kawhi, they don't call him the claw for a reason. Um, and they both have that defensive aspect, but also could turn it up on offense. I think that really helps out each other.
well, it'll be interesting to see. And again, the NBA season kicks off in October. As again, this is a tune-up season for all those players to get their final touches in before the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. And speaking of the Olympics, we are having some World Cup qualifying. I think they're playing in the World Cup right now. The U.S. and Japan. I don't know what happened today. I believe the U.S. won. I'm hoping the U.S. won. But Desmond, do you think the World Cup playing in the summer? Are you familiar with the World Cup that's going on right now for basketball?
Yes,
Do you think it's
USA lost the other day, right?
No? They beat Turkey, but they played Japan today. I don't know if they won or lost. Regardless of the outcome, do you think the World Cup is good or bad for the NBA?
Uh, I That's a hard question. I do know like a lot of the veterans, a lot of players are sitting out, not joining the team.
That's my
I'm
idea. Is that if you, let's say you were in a position, you were in the NBA and you were approached to play for Team USA, would you play for Team USA, or would you say no? My NBA career is more important than playing for the national team.
I would play for Team USA, but I think a lot of the players didn't play dealing with political reasons.
Okay.
But let's take out the political stuff. I think I would play. Yes.
Do you think seeing that like Tatum, Jason Tatum, he went down with an injury last in the second game against Turkey.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think like that might hinder his chance to play in the NBA this season? Because like,
I mean,
he's not going to be at his full health. He might be 80 to 90%. Do you think that's an impact in some of these players' decisions?
yes, because they're always gonna be afraid of, playing more games, being more tired, more likely to injuries. But also it could be more practice, better rewards. So that's definitely risky. I have seen a lot of times people get injured for playing Team USA. I mean, sometimes you gotta do it for your nation. You know what I'm saying?
I got you. If I was in the position, now granted, I can't play basketball to save my life, but if I was in the position, I would definitely play for Team USA just because of how much respect I have for not only the coach, for Coach Popovich, but also for the fact of you're playing for your country. You're playing for the chance to win a championship for your country. I think that's kind of a big deal, is it not? Would you rather win a championship for your country or championship for a franchise? I'd rather win a championship for a country. I mean, am I
I
wrong?
think, I think definitely for a franchise, it'd be a whole lot meaningful because let's be honest, the United States is way better than everyone else in basketball. I mean, it's not even, you know, we've won.
Okay, but still, you would that's a gold medal for winning for your country versus a big trophy for just beating 30 other teams in the same, or technically 28, and one that's not in the United States, Toronto, but uh, in the league. Like, there's a difference between that, and I think that this difference is the idea, like, one is for your country, one is for your city. And you're telling me you'd rather play for and win one for the city rather than your country?
Yes.
Interesting. I don't know. I just think that I don't know. I feel like I would rather play for my country, but that's just an opinion. And do you think it's also driven? You mentioned the political issues and stuff. Do you think that's also driving a factor in that these players don't want to be, let's say they do win the gold medal, they don't want to be put in that spotlight in that situation? Because if they do win it, then they could definitely use that to their advantage in
Right.
trying to get these political issues going.
Which is what we saw the U.S. women's soccer team. Uh,
Exactly.
exactly.
With the
Yeah.
equal pay and with
Mhm.
all, I'm trying to think of some of the other political issues that were coming out of it. But yeah, so I don't know. It's something that we'll definitely look at. And again, the NBA season kicks off in October, and we'll catch back up when that happens. As for now, we do have the MLB final stretch of the season, so we'll get some postseason predictions in a few weeks once the regular season comes to a close. Now, Desmond, it is time to start making some picks for this week's big games. I would like to inform not just you, but our listeners that we both got our upsets right last week. Started off the year right. I cannot believe that Boise State pulled off the upset. I'm not going to lie. And did you see Willie Taggart's reasons? He claimed that they were dehydrated, even though they're playing a team from Idaho and they were playing in Florida. He also said that they just weren't prepared enough because they didn't have enough time. Excuse me? I'm sorry. That's just excuses, excuses, excuses. If Willie Taggart's not careful, I don't see him lasting even the entire season, let alone like halfway through if they don't do well. So that was, and then of course the Oregon Auburn. That was Desmond's upset pick. Auburn's pulled it out in the last 9 seconds of the game.
Damn right, baby.
With Bo Nix, who scares me because I think he's going to have a pretty good game against the A&M secondary when they come to town in a few weeks. But we'll worry about that when we get there. Let's talk about the games this week. All right, Desmond. We have probably the biggest game to date in the last 15 years for the Texas Longhorns. The Tigers of LSU travel to Austin because everybody in Austin gets their way of having the home and home series be in Austin first. This top 10 matchup will be definitely one to remember. Sam Ehlinger versus Joe Burrow. First home, and here's the statistics. It's the first home primetime nationally televised game in Austin. So basically first Saturday night football game in Austin since 2013. Okay, they've had Saturday night games before, but this is the first time since they've been on ABC Saturday Night Football since 2013. At home. College game day is there. Of course, they're going to be there because it's the biggest game of the week. Clemson to A&M,
Right.
they went to last year, so they're not going to go there again. That's the first time game days in Austin since 2009. This just seems like a game that has a lot of implications. If Texas wins, they're going to still think they're back and that they have a very legitimate chance to win the playoff. If LSU wins, it means that they are in a legitimate chance to go to playoff, and Texas gets to just sit in a rut for the next few weeks because they don't really have any bigger opponents. This is their biggest opponent. LSU still's got Alabama, Texas A&M, Auburn, you name it. Everyone in the SEC. This game is going to be really, really close. I like Texas. I like Texas a lot for their offense. Okay, I want this to be on the record that I'm saying that I really like Texas's offense because I rarely will say that ever again. But I think LSU sneaks it out. Fourth quarter is going to be ginormous. It's going to be a really good fourth quarter. I like LSU 35-34. Desmond, what about you?
Well, George, I already sadly expressed my love for Sam Ehlinger. I think he's a really good quarterback. Ah,
Excuse you.
sorry, no, that was my mouth. However, all right, I'm going big. I'm going big. I'm going big. This is my upset. Texas is going to win this 38-35.
Wow. Okay. And do you think it's going to be like last minute, or do you think that 35
I
points?
think it'll be last like 2-3 minutes.
Okay. Okay. I see you. Again, that game is on ABC at 6:30 on Saturday. LSU is a touchdown favorite. So just keep that in mind when you're betting, if you do bet. The next game we're talking about is a game that should kind of came into the preseason being more, or like in the offseason being more hype. Now it's not really, it's kind of faded off. Army travels to the big house to face number 7 Michigan and the Wolverines. Army barely got past Rice last week, 14-7. They didn't have a very good offensive performance. I don't think they're going to be able to tackle this uphill challenge. Jim Harbaugh gets Michigan off to a good start. I got Michigan 45, Army 24. Desmond?
Well, George, I agree. I don't think Army stands a chance against a powerhouse like Michigan. I have Michigan winning this 42-17.
And Michigan is a 22-point favorite in this game, so keep that in mind. All right, Desmond, we get to a former Big 12 rivalry. I want you to take it all the way back to like talking 2010, 2009 even. You remember who was competing in the Big 12 that year, those years? It was all about Big Red, baby. Big Red and the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Also in the Big 12, prior to their exit, was the Colorado Buffaloes. These two teams square off again, second half of a home and home. Last year they played in Nebraska and Colorado got the win. This year they traveled to Boulder, Colorado. They travel, meaning Nebraska. And for some reason, when you have a live buffalo as your mascot, there's nothing stopping you. I've got the Colorado Buffaloes in my upset pick of the week. Colorado 31, Nebraska 27. Nebraska is overrated.
Okay, George, you're going pretty bold this week. I could definitely see that happening, but I decided to take the other take on this situation, so I think Nebraska's going to win 24-17.
And Nebraska is a 4-point favorite. So with my pick, I believe that not only Colorado will win, but they will win outright. All right? Keep that in mind. Next, another Big Ten team faces a smaller school challenge, as we talked about it earlier, as the Cincinnati Bearcats take on the Ohio State Buckeyes in the 5th-ranked team in the nation in Columbus, Ohio. Ohio State is a 16-point favorite. I expect it to be just about that. Justin Fields, make it 2-0 for the Buckeyes. Ohio State 42, Cincinnati 23. Desmond?
Well, George, I think Ohio State is going to just roll over them. And what was the score? I think I had Ohio State winning 48-21.
So big again. Just about the same as last week.
Right.
All right. And I believe that would put them at 3-0 going into their final non-conference game of the week, or conference game of the year. I'm not sure who they play, but that's just interesting there. All right. In two teams, which we thought would probably be a 1-0 versus a 1-0 matchup and give Kelly Bryant a chance to show off, we now have a West Virginia Mountaineers team and a Missouri Tiger team that are both trying to look for a win to get themselves back on track. West Virginia did win. They beat James Madison last week, but only by like 3, or a touchdown. So not really a big win or a convincing win.
Right.
Kelly Bryant is desperate for a win. He again taking over from transferring from Clemson to Missouri. I think a rebuilding Mountaineer team runs into a Missouri Tiger team that, even though may have a postseason ban, still questionable based off of what happens. I think Missouri wins, gets the home crowd, gets their first win of the season. Missouri 48, West Virginia 30. Desmond?
Wow. I have West Virginia winning by a touchdown, 35-28.
Why?
Well, George, I think the Big 12 offense is going to kick in. Virginia, I think they've changed so much from last year.
Well, yeah, because they lost Will Greer.
I know they lost.
They have Kendall, the guy from Oklahoma.
But I don't think we should sleep on them. I'm not saying that I'm saying for this game, not for the year, of course. But I'm saying like I think they're a better team than Missouri.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to gauge Missouri now because when you lose to a group of five opponent like Wyoming, you kind of don't know where to stand them. Where to put them in the specific, like, are they better? Are they worse than we expected? Are they about the
Right.
same? Is Wyoming better? So it'll be curious to see. All right, and the next game that we have, it's a touchdown game. Purdue is a touchdown favorite. They face off against the Vanderbilt Commodores. Both teams are looking for their first win of the year. Um, this game has a very special meaning. Tyler Trent, he was the guy who passed away last year. He was like 19. He was like our age. He was either a freshman or sophomore. He had cancer. Um, he was like the biggest Boilermaker fan people like that they knew of. He was actually in attendance in that Ohio State Purdue game. I don't know if you remember that huge upset that Ohio State
Yeah.
lost. He was there, and shortly thereafter he passed away. And so as in his memory, they're naming one of the student gates, like one of the gates of entry to Purdue Stadium, naming the Tyler Trent Student Gate in his honor. And I think that's pretty cool. And because of that, I don't think there's going to be too much emotion and too much wanting to win it for him, for his memory. I've got Purdue winning big, 28, Vandy 10.
Well, I don't want to be that. I feel bad now, but I had Vanderbilt winning this 17-13.
Oh, you're going to spoil the party?
I'm sorry.
All right, all right. I see how it is.
Uh,
Do you think so? That brings up a good question. If Purdue does fall to 0-2, they face TCU next week, or in 2 weeks, either next week or in 2 weeks. What does that mean for the Purdue program? What do you think that the message is going to be? Do you think they're going to need to get back on the right side of things? Do you think hot seat's going to be warm?
I think it just be. I think the hot seat will be a little warm, maybe a little lukewarm, but
Okay.
it'd definitely be a wake up call that they need to get back on track.
Speaking of getting back on track, the BYU Cougars run into a Tennessee Volunteer team that is desperately, I mean desperately with a capital D, desperately trying to get on track as both are looking for a win. BYU coming off of a loss to their rival, Tennessee, of course, coming off that really bad loss where they were 25-point favorite, yada, yada, yada. Honestly, I don't know why I didn't choose this as my upset. I do still have confidence in my upset, which is Colorado, but this is a close second. BYU gets their first win over an SEC opponent since 2016. I've got the Cougars 31-28 in overtime. Desmond?
Wow. Well, I think the SEC team will prevail. I know Tennessee struggled last week, but I think that they'll bounce back, and get a win, 27-21.
And Tennessee is a 4-point favorite. However, the line is dropping as we speak. It was a 3.5 point about 2 hours ago, and it went up and then it's gone back down. So this game is basically anybody's. And I think it's because nobody knows what type of team Tennessee is anymore. When you lose to like a Georgia State team like that, you don't know where to start. Nevada and Oregon being 16th ranked. This game, I don't know why I put it on here. I just think because Nevada beat Purdue, they're coming off some really good momentum. Oregon is trying to get that first win after losing to Auburn in a very tough loss. Desmond, I don't think Nevada has another upset in them. I would want them to so bad because that would make for really good talking next week. But Nevada, sorry. Oregon's going to just trance and roll all over you. 41-20.
Well, George, my score was actually pretty close to that as well. I had Oregon winning this game, 42-21.
Yeah, Oregon Oregon is a 24-point favorite, but I think Nevada keeps it a little bit closer than that. But don't expect them to get the win. If they get the win, uh, like I'm saying that, I'm not gonna make any bets here because we know what happens with
Ah,
those.
right.
But if Nevada keeps it closer and um, makes it a little closer, maybe you can get to win. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I might have to jump on the Nevada bandwagon. So possibly. Another game, and Desmond, I want to thank you for bringing me to the bandwagon, but I kind of am jumping on the North Carolina bandwagon. They're
Ah,
facing Miami in their home opener. Miami, Jaron Williams looked decent against Florida. Again, I said that Florida shouldn't have won that game, and Miami was the stronger team, but let's just be honest, both teams were sloppy. It was not very good football. We were just enjoying it because it was the first game back, finally get some college football back in our veins and enjoy it. So I'm gonna say in a very close game, uh, Mac Brown brings out his old bag of tricks yet again, as he showed last week. I got North Carolina winning 37-34. Go Tar Heels.
well, you're welcome, George, for telling you about UNC. I actually think that this game will be a low-scoring game.
Okay.
I think it'll be very defensive. I do have UNC winning 10-3.
Wow. So you think
Yes.
turnover chain's gonna come out quite a few times?
Yes.
That turnover chain, I gotta be honest. The
It's pretty
Miami turnover
swaggy.
chain is pretty swag. Yeah,
It
it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
is.
Did you see the touchdown knuckles, that the touchdown rings that they have too? Did you
Yeah,
see
yeah.
that? I think the turnover chain's better,
I
but
like the
like
chain better. Yeah, the chain's better.
somebody I saw a meme on Twitter. It said like Miami spends more on their jewelry than they do providing to the rest of the athletics program. I was like, oof, oof, big
That's
oof.
tough.
And in our final game that we're gonna pick this week, it's the Pac-12 showdown after dark that we were not expecting. We were expecting, but not what it's turned into. Stanford lost, or their quarterback is questionable for this week, and USC lost their quarterback to a torn ACL and meniscus. JT Daniels is out for the rest of the season. I These two games were really, really awful. The USC game over Fresno State, they were lucky to get out alive on that one. And the Northwestern Stanford game was just weird. I'll be honest, it was just weird. I predicted it was going to be a low scoring game, and it was just that. It was weird. So this game, I got to go to Stanford, but the game is a pick 'em, which means the line is just about even. USC was listed at -1 as a 1 point favorite, but I think the line has gotten more to being just a pick 'em, and I think it's going to be just that. Based off of what Stanford's quarterback situation is, if we do get two backup quarterbacks playing in this game will not be a game you're going to want to watch on TV. I'll just say that. But I've got Stanford winning 27-13, but I don't even think that's a good prediction. Maybe more like
Yeah.
maybe like 20-19 or something. I don't know. What about you guys?
I had Stanford winning this game, 20-13. I did think it was gonna be very close. Not really high scoring, but it'll be interesting to see who wins.
And one of the games that we've said this, I think we're going to make this a new thing to add to the podcast this season, Desmond. I said it last week. I called it the scary good game, and that was UCLA and Cincinnati, where Cincinnati was a 2.5 point favorite, and I said maybe it'll be the closest game this week. It turned out that Cincinnati won by like 10 points or 14 points or something like that, so it really wasn't worth it. But we're going to make that I think a segment here where the line has to be within 4 points, and it has to be a game you're not necessarily expecting. Like maybe it's, I don't know, UAB versus Auburn or something, and the line is 4 points. You're like, why is it that low? So
Right.
this week, the scary good game is number 21 Syracuse on the road against Maryland. Maryland, both teams are 1-0. Maryland won like 79-0 last week. It was bad. Syracuse won 24-0 over Liberty last week. This game, Maryland is a 2 point favorite. Okay, Desmond, in this new segment, I want you to, the whole thing is you're going to pick which team, if you do have a team that's going to cover the spread, like if Maryland's going to cover the 2-point spread, if Syracuse is going to win outright, or if the game's just not even going to be close. So so what do you go with? Maryland covering, Syracuse outright, or just not even close? The game not even being close.
Not even close. Syracuse.
Wow. And why?
I mean, describe not even close. I'd say that probably won by 10.
Okay. Yeah. That's compared to what the spread is. That's not even close.
Yeah.
Do you think it's just people are not really, they don't know what Maryland is yet, or do you think it's just Syracuse?
I think they don't really know what Maryland is yet.
Okay. I'm actually going to take Maryland. I'm going to go with Syracuse outright, meaning that they win by 2 at least. Actually, no, they win. I think it's win by a touchdown, whatever the outright is. Strictly because I'm with you. I don't know what Maryland has, but I wouldn't be surprised for this game to come down to the wire if it's a field goal game or something. And again, remember, Syracuse gets Clemson next week. So if Syracuse does lose, that makes it a little bit of an interesting game. They could go to 1-2. They could fall to 1-2 next week if they lose to Clemson. If they win this game, now that would still put them at 2-1 if they lose to Clemson. But it makes up for interesting TV. That game is at 11 a.m. Central on ESPN if you want to follow the action. Finally, to wrap up our episode 2 of the new season, we're taking a look at the small school outlook. North Texas just whooped up on Abilene Christian. Sorry, Abilene Christian. Love you, but North Texas had to do it to you. 1-0. Does that sound familiar, Desmond? It should, because that's what they were last year, and they have a chance to be 3-0 by the time they face Houston, which I think is their biggest challenge so far. They do face Cal next week. That could be a challenge, but Cal doesn't really look that strong this year. I think they're going to beat SMU again. SMU doesn't look like they're holding up a challenge. They barely beat Arkansas State last week. So sounds a little bit eerily familiar. I don't know about you, but North Texas, again, still growing on me, but Nevada is coming very close. If they beat Oregon, we may have a change next week. What about you in Houston Cougars losing to Oklahoma last week? Give me some small school breakdown.
Well, George, Houston did lose.
Big time.
I mean, considering that it is Oklahoma.
Wasn't it 31-49?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's not that bad considering the difference of, schools. We're talking about Oklahoma here.
That's fair.
And we're talking about Jalen Hurts possibly playing one of the best games in his whole career.
Good point.
I'm pleased by this game because they played fairly well. I mentioned their King and Stevenson. They both showed out. King threw for 167 yards, also ran for 103 yards, no interceptions, 2 touchdowns. Stevenson had 80 yards. But considering that it is Houston Cougars, I think they played very well against Oklahoma, the top 5 ranked team right now in college football.
And who do they get this week?
Next week they play Purdue A&M, which should be a win.
Oh.
Yeah.
So they'll get back on track.
Right.
Desmond, over under 30 points scored in the first half by Houston.
I'm gonna say over.
Oh my gosh. Oh my Lord. Okay. Hey, and that Houston fans get a treat because Prairie View A&M's band is pretty good too. So
yeah, you were talking about that.
I would take. Obviously, Houston's gonna win big, but Prairie View A&M's gonna win halftime because they're gonna have a pretty good band show. So I'll give them that. Well, I think that's gonna ring the bell on episode number 2 of the year. We will check back in next week, hopefully with a Clemson loss, Aggie upset. A Houston big win, and hopefully another North Texas win. Well, hopefully. But as far as that goes. We'll see you next week. Adios from College Station. I'm George Koff, and for my colleague in Lubbock,
Desmond McLaughlin.
and so long from the Fifth Quarter Podcast. We'll catch you next time.